Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Salustio here with you again. As of today, ladies and gents, as of today, we have released 150, and today, it doesn't matter what day it is, because when you actually listen to this, it might not be today, or it won't be today, because we're 3 weeks out. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with the details, but we have released episodes with at least 150 university presidents, college and university presidents, which we think we're the only podcast in the world to accomplish such a feat. We have interviewed people all over the world, some of the most important voices in higher ed, community colleges, for-profits, private 2-year, private 4-year, publics, all over the board. And you know what? It's been humbling, actually, and we've done a lot of this during the COVID time. So hearing the stories of the I don't know, just the hardships of presidents going through COVID and how they were moving and adapting, and then just to hear some of the amazing things that came out of it, and now servicing students and getting them back into school, and the value of higher ed came up during this time. It's just so many themes to keep track of. It'd be impossible to go back and memorize all of the themes that have come up, which is why we're writing a book called Commencement, the beginning of new era in higher education. Shows you how much on my game I am today, where you're going to get the insights of over 100 college and university presidents, and we're going to distill all of those things that have come up over the 150 presidents into a book so you can read and catch up. Or you can go back and listen to all the presidents, which I would suggest that you do, because every single one is different. Every single president brings unique perspective, and every single person has been fun in their own way. And sometimes I bring on an individual here to co-host with me that just scratches the surface of fun. I feel like sometimes he's fun, sometimes he's more fun, but he's just right on the surface. He is the guru of online learning, Dr. Bill Pepicello. Bill, how are you? You are actually a fun guy.
Thanks a lot, Joe. I appreciate that. Good to be here with you. And if you're finally done talking about yourself, perhaps we can get on to talk with our guest today.
Well, I'm going to rip up my whole plan. I got to tell you, Bill, where have you been lately, and what have you been doing?
Cheers!
A lot of that.
Yeah, I just came back from a month-long cruise through Europe. We did Portugal, Spain, Italy, Montenegro, and various other places, ending up in Venice.
And how much of it do you remember?
Cheers!
Yeah, well, I remember a few stops.
Wow, Bill. Well, it's been a while, my friend, since you've been on, because you're doing less important things like traveling the world, which I don't know why you wouldn't have taken your microphone with you and podcasted while you're on the trip. I still am confused.
I just need to get away from you once in a while, Joe.
Bill, let me speak to you about all the reasons why you can't do that, because I love you too much, my friend. With us today, we have an incredible person. She's ready to come on. She's prepared. She's got her color with her. She's bright and blue today with a great blue necklace on. Here she comes, ladies and gentlemen, as I properly introduce her. Her name is Dr. Janet Spriggs, and she is president of Forsyth Community College, Technical and Community College, and I had to practice that. Janet, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Joe? So good to be here with both you and Bill today. Thank you.
Thanks for coming up. I think if you asked Bill how I was doing, he would say not well, because I keep messing up already.
You're about as good as you ever are.
Thank you for that great knowledge, Bill. Janet, so happy to have you here today, for a number of reasons. Number one, because we love talking to community college presidents. First of all, that's great because of the work that you're doing. Second of all, you haven't not been without challenge, servicing students from lower economic and diverse backgrounds. And at the same time, technical and community colleges have been tasked with reskilling our workforce. It's really this interesting paradigm that you're navigating through. So talk to us about Forsyth, or if you're looking at the words phonetically, Forsyth, right? Technical Community College. What do you guys do and how do you do it?
So at Forsyth Technical and Community College, we do basically the things that I'm sure the 60 or so other community college presidents you've talked about are doing as well. Community colleges across the country are meeting a diverse set of educational and career and technical educational needs of diverse populations of students. We are at once a transfer organization, so we're helping students prepare their first 2 years of their baccalaureate with us. We're also, of course, as you mentioned, huge drivers of workforce development. So I think that without community colleges, our country would have even greater problems than we do have now with regards to meeting workforce gaps and preparing workers for the jobs that we have available today and the gaps that we have available today, as well as the jobs that are coming in the future and the gaps that we are anticipating will be there in the future. So we kind of like to believe at Forsyth Tech, our tagline is that we're a place of promise. And I think that that's true. I also think we are a place of promise for every student, and we can meet them where they are and do our very best to get them to wherever they want to go.
You know, I'm going to pick out something you just said right at the end. By the way, I've said Forsyth wrong, Forsyth. I've said it wrong every single time. So listen to Janet and the way she says it to get it right. But you said servicing the students where they are. And I ever heard so many people say that. And then higher ed struggle to do it. What does it mean to you at your technical and community college? Now I'm going to say at your technical because I can't say the name right. What does it mean to you, and how do you do that and feel like you've accomplished it?
Well, and I will tell you, it's not an easy job. It's very hard because our students are coming to us at so many different from so many different places and from so many different backgrounds and experiences. We just had commencement 2 weeks ago, and my youngest graduate was 16 years old, and the oldest was 73. And we had everything in between. And we had students right out of high school that come to us, and we've got students that come back to us from after attaining a bachelor's degree or after working, and they come back to us when they retire, so to speak, to decide to skill up for what's next for them in their retirement. So what it means for us is that we are a student-ready college, and we spend a lot of time talking at Forsyth Tech about being a student-ready college versus expecting college-ready students. That's really important for us. Because we have committed to being an open door institution. And so a large part of what we're doing is trying to figure out what those diverse sets of needs of so many different diverse populations of students are going to be. What does the adult mother need from us versus what does the 18-year-old who just graduated from high school need? And we work really hard to kind of look at the holistic needs of the students, what they need in the classroom, but also what do they need outside of the classroom, because we know that life happens. Issues are the barriers that most of our students face most often. So I think I sort of got at what you were asking about, but we take it very, very seriously here. It's a matter of equity. It's a matter of making sure that every learner has the unique and specific kinds of supports, that both academic and non-academic support systems in place to help them be successful.
Gosh, 16 years old.
Like a baby.
I know. Can you imagine, right?
Well, I know. Like, how do you create something that's going to service someone who's 16? Because when they turn 16 and 2 days old, they're totally going to change what they want. Yeah. Talk about a pinball of needs and how you service that. And Bill, it looks like you're getting ready to say something.
Attention.
I just want to make sure everybody's listening.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm very taken with what you've had to say, Janet. And, I had the opportunity to take a quick look at your institution, and I see that there's something that speaks to what you just said, is that you have a good balance of job-related curricula, certificates and degrees, but also there's a focus on personal development. I mean, I was taken by the fact that there are several foreign language courses that you can take there as you prepare students to go off. I know that's probably more for the transfer, but and I think an important thing that I know about you, and I'm sure Joe doesn't, is that you have a particularly interesting perspective on what you do, given your history. Because if memory serves me right, you are a first generation college student. Can you talk about that a little bit and how it informs what you do now?
Sure, absolutely. And you have done your homework. I'm impressed, Bill. That's awesome. And I'm glad that you could find that easily, actually, because I think it's important. I believe firmly that I am living out my purpose with passion every day. And that's something that I try to teach our students, to find their purpose in life and live it with passion every day. And I think that my purpose comes from my experience in so many ways. I grew up, as I was talking to you guys before we got started, I grew up about 80 miles from where I'm at now in Winston-Salem at Forsyth Tech. And I grew up on a tobacco farm. And we were, poor tobacco farmers back in the 70s. I grew up in the late 60s and 70s. And so my parents, at the time that I graduated from high school, neither of them had even graduated from high school at that time. And I'm so proud that my mom did go back and get her GED and earn a degree at a community college when I was, about 16 or 17, or I'm sorry, my brother was about 16 or 17 years old. So it's a wonderful, community college has been a part of my history. I was that first person in my family who had the privilege and the opportunity to be able to graduate from high school and to take that and turn it into being able to go to college. But I was not the last. So what we see so many times with first generation students is that they are catalysts for changing the legacy for generations to come of their families. That was certainly true for me and for my family. My brother graduated from college. My kids had the opportunity to graduate from college. My nephew is in college now. It changed the entire trajectory of our family. So it's very, very personal for me. I also know that because I was a low-income student, I had specific barriers and challenges that so many of our students have. And again, those challenges were very different from the students who could have gone to any college they wanted to because they were middle class or above and had plenty of financial resources. So who you are does, I think, inform how you do your work and how you live out your purpose here. And from my perspective, the community college was part of my journey in that I was able to get a scholarship to go to the university, and I did, but life happens also got in my way. And without the support system that I needed from family to be able to keep me on the road to college, I made decisions along my life that took a long time for me to earn that first bachelor's degree. So I utilized college to be a part of it. And that's what we find with our students, that we have to be able to try to keep them moving down the pathway and not let all these things that are competing for their time and their money to derail their progress towards their degree, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Let me just follow up with one other item, and then I'll throw it back to you, Joe. I think what you've said is something that a lot of people lose today, and that is that what happens outside of the campus is just as important as what happens inside, and that there are a great number of variations, even within the county that you serve. I think you've got about 9 or 10 locations all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that every one of those has its own flavor. Mm-hmm. So that you've got to make sure that you're adapting to those individual places as well as providing the curricular base. Now, adding to that, because I'm sure you had the similar challenges that everybody did during the pandemic. Do you also have an array of online classes that you might have fallen back on to help through the pandemic? And could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, well, we had no choice. When the pandemic came along, we had to very quickly adapt. And Bill, you'll probably relate to this. Higher education is not always the quickest to adapt it, and I think we learned a lot during COVID. I'm always the person who's trying to take the lemons and make lemonade. And one of the things that I can say that was a positive from this pandemic is that we realized in higher ed, we can respond a little quicker and do things a little bit faster, and the world doesn't end. end when we do that. We can get rid of some of the red tape and the bureaucracy and really make things happen sooner. So we had to learn how to do everything online. And we did. We developed new courses that had never been taught. We found ways to teach anatomy and physiology and biology and chemistry at a distance using lab kits and things like that. We had a lot of online classes already, but there were so many things that we had never even attempted to try to do in a virtual space. And we had to learn how to do that. We had to teach our faculty how to do that, and really spend some time and money preparing faculty to be online faculty who had never taught outside of a traditional classroom environment before. You know, it was really scary when I got a phone call right after we went home for the pandemic saying that they were trying to figure out how they were going to teach welding at home. And I had these visions of the garages that were going to burn down. While our students were trying to weld in their garage. It was a little bit frightening. Yes, exactly. Fire. But none of that came to fruition. And we did find such amazing, unique, and creative and innovative ways that we were able to keep doing that. We still now have a much greater volume of online opportunities for students. But what we've seen is that students did want to come back to the classroom. They just wanted greater flexibility. So we've done this thing that we call multimodal. And basically that means that you and I can schedule to take a class in person together on Monday, Wednesday. But if my baby is sick and I need to stay home and take care of the baby that day, the class is being streamed at that same time and I can watch it if I can. Or if not, it's being recorded and it's in my LMS later that afternoon in the learning management system that I can go back and catch up. So there's been a lot of those kinds of things that we've learned from this pandemic that have been invaluable.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got, Joe?
Well, I got more than you, I'll tell you that. Yeah. You just made me think of something that we've addressed it over and over and over with different presidents who've come on. And it's this piece that pandemic forces everybody to go home, and sometimes to a home situation that is not that great. Right? You have a family that says, okay, you got to go find a job. Well, what jobs are there? There weren't jobs, so on and so forth. That's why it's been somewhat hard to get students back in the system, and then enrollment declines and so on. And as much as online courses helped many colleges sustain through the pandemic, many students are saying, and kind of voting with their feet and saying, I want to now get back to where I was. I want to go back to the school. And you wonder, so who's going to write the dissertation that talks about this transition from, home life, and then, how school becomes this haven of escape for students. And are you seeing that with your students where they're just saying to you, I want to come back. I want to be around other people. What is this going to be like for me? How do I navigate it? Is it safe? And all of these things that we have to consider now.
Yes, so we're seeing that, and we're seeing the exact opposite of that too. It's been very, very interesting. We are back in person. We've got this semester and in the fall semester actually here, we had the same mix of traditional versus online versus hybrid type classes as we had prior to the pandemic. So we really have been successful at getting back in person, but we've created this greater flexibility, which is something that our students are really demanding. So I think what I'm seeing, Joe, more than I want to be back in class, what we're seeing is I want more flexibility with how I manage, how I attend class, and more flexibility with how you engage with me as a student. Many of our students really struggled. This was not an equal opportunity pandemic at all. So initially, we had so many of our students who did not have the technology that was going to be required. And we had to find really in quick ways of getting the technology to them so they could be successful as online students. Many of them had never taken an online class ever in their life. And so they had to learn what was different about engaging with their faculty and their students in an online environment. And that was hard for some students. many students had never done it before and found out they loved being online, and they don't want to go back. They want to now continue to take more online classes. So really what we've been faced with is trying to meet all these needs of so many different styles and demands from our students. But primarily it has been a lot of them wanting to come back. And sometimes I will say too, it's the social aspects of the engagement that was a big factor for so many students, because they do have these personal situations that don't allow them to be socially engaged as much. I had this one student, I was so proud to hug his neck at our commencement ceremony because he graduated, because the first week we were out of school, he was emailing me almost every day, wanting to know when he could come back. He lived alone. He had no family to support him, and he was just so isolated and depressed. And he just begged if he could just come back and walk around the campus. And it was just so sad. And he graduated 2 weeks ago. And I remember the day he came back to school, when we opened back and had students back for the first day, he literally came to my office to see me, to tell me how grateful he was that we opened back for him, because he was just miserable. So it's been a whole lot of that. We've heard all of that from our students. We want to be back. We want more online. We want more flexibility, all of that.
Wow. Well, you know what? That's an amazing story. And you think about the individual one-by-one impact that we have on people's lives. And sometimes we're, dealing with people in mass. It's those moments that make a big difference. And I'm sure he felt that hug that you gave him. Speaking of hugs, I'm going to give you all a warm embrace here with our latest entry into Higher Ed Word Association. You know what time it is, Bill. And
I
Janet,
do.
You don't know, Janet, but this is your first time here. Let me get it right again. Oh yeah, Higher Ed Word Association with your contestants, Janet Spriggs, Bill Papicello. And this is where I give you a word associated with higher education, and you're going to tell me the first group of thoughts, ideas that come to your mind. Could be positive, could be negative, could be insightful. In Bill's case, we'll see. But we're going to have you go first, Bill, to give Janet her preparation, and then Janet, you'll take over from there. You're both going to get the same word, but you can't say what he said or what she said. You got to give your answer. All right, Bill, you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Soft skills.
Soft skills. Well, I think, especially from what Janet said today, it's one of the things that we need to keep in mind going forward, especially with community colleges being right in the middle of job preparation for students. While employers say they want soft skills, oftentimes what they really want are the hard skills. And I think higher education needs not to lose track of the fact that those soft skills are what really help people be successful.
Put that in your book, ladies and gents. That's good. All right, Janet, soft skills.
Okay, well, since I can't say what Bill said, let's see what I can add to those great words from Bill. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that is the number one thing that we hear that our business partners need from us. It is truly something that I think people don't necessarily realize how important it is for us to not only teach the concepts within the class, the learning outcomes for particular subjects, but it's teaching things like being to work on time matters, learning how to deal with customer service issues, those kinds of things, learning how to write emails that don't look like text messages, some of those kinds of things.
Becoming harder and harder to do that, right?
Yes, it is. But I think it's important. And so it's part of, I think, what we have to build into our learning outcomes to focus on how we prepare for the workforce, the whole worker, not just meeting the technical skills, but understanding what it's like to be in the workforce. Yeah.
And one of the things that comes up a lot is, what are these really called? Because they're not soft. They're not soft skills. What are they? Power skills or industry necessary skills or business skills or something? There's something else that we have to call them that nobody else has come up with a good name that's stuck.
Yeah.
Well, they're life skills.
Mm-hmm.
They are life skills. I think they're people skills. It's business success, really.
Hey, everybody, head over to www.edupexperience.com, our website, where you're going to find all of the episodes that we've recorded categorized so that you can ensure that you're spending your time listening to the podcasts that are most important to you. You're going to see the reviews of our podcasts, the shows in our network, our partners, and a section on starter episodes. If you're new to the EdUp experience, listen to those starter episodes and get a feel for how the podcast has evolved over time and our impact in the world. www.edupexperience.com.
Right.
All right, here we go. You ready, Janet? You get this one now.
Okay.
I think they do get a little bit harder. That was kind of a meatball. Free college.
Oh, that's a good one. From my perspective, community colleges being free would be a game changer for this country. I think that because we are drivers for equity and we're engines for equity, I should say, and drivers for workforce development, that if we didn't have to worry about the financial burden to being able to give our students 2 more years post high school to get those job skills that they need to be able to take to the marketplace, to the workforce, because we know that 2 out of every 3 jobs require skills that you don't get in high school, right? Post-secondary skills training is necessary for 2 out of 3 jobs in this country. So free college is a good idea from my perspective because it is tied to our workforce and our economy and how we are able to meet the demands of an increasingly diverse workforce and those increasing higher level skills that are needed to meet those demands. So I say free college equals greater benefits to society as a whole and greater benefits to business and the economy as a whole.
Okay, good. Bill, free college.
Well, I certainly agree with everything that Janet had to say. My perspective is a little different, having worked heavily on the business end of such things. And that is, while it's a great idea, nobody has really thought through what free college means because it's not free. It's free for the students, but somebody has to pay for it. You've got facilities, you've got faculty, all those costs don't go away. And so somebody bears the burden. And of course, that's going to be the taxpayers. So my concern with free college is, even though it's free, there has to be a business model behind it so that we know where the money will come from. And some of the models that are out there right now is that free college will be 75% funded from the federal government and 25% from the states, although the states are increasingly reducing the amount of money they're putting in. And it's very difficult to get money out of the federal government. So I agree. It's a great idea. I'd love to see it, especially at the community college level, because I think that's where it's needed most. I think it's a long, hard road to hoe to get there. And now I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you want to hear everything I have to say about free college, and this is for everyone out there listening,
attention.
Please listen to my podcast, EdUp Insights, which comes out weekly. And about 2 weeks ago, I did 15 minutes or so of a tirade about free college. So I welcome people to listen to that and all of the other wonderful episodes.
Yeah, I'm not sure what just happened there, but I'm pretty sure you just plugged your own podcast on my podcast.
I don't know.
Very cool, huh?
Well done. Well done. I got to give credit where it's due. That was a great discussion back and forth. It gives you some, we have such varying perspectives on free college, of course. You get to the individual consumer who goes, and I've heard it like within my own family and friends, and somebody goes, we need free college. It's just what Janet said, because we've got to educate people. It's going to help our economy. And then you have somebody sitting next to that person that goes, well, I didn't get free college and I'm paying back my loans right now. And why can't I get all my loans free? You know what I mean? It becomes almost this rabidly emotional conversation between two people sitting at the same kitchen table who is really interesting one.
I agree. I also should say, if you don't mind, Joe, I agree with what Bill's saying as a taxpayer, right? That there are definitely all of those considerations to be figured out. And there's not an easy answer for how we afford to do it. I just think that it would be very beneficial to us and to the business and economic community if we could figure out how to do that. I also would say that in being in partnership with businesses on how we work with them to make aspects of this more affordable for the workers we're training for them is an interesting approach that might be one of those solutions that we could talk about, figuring out. We have great programs with some of our business partners where they are like apprenticeships, right? Where they're getting something in return immediately, and we're able, and by token, they're also paying for their education for their workers. And I think things like that would be very, very interesting to pursue further.
Yeah, and we can get into so many parts of that. You guys remember, I can't remember what it was called, but it was a New York one. It was in the Excelsior Scholarship, but you had to, if you got it, you had to live there for 2 years. And if you went out of state, you had to pay all the loans back. Right. And you think if states are going to come into this, do you want to educate somebody with your taxpayer dollars in your state and have that person just go and do a different state for a new job? Like there's all those considerations around it but there is no business model. That's the struggle. Mm-hmm. All right, Janet, here we go. Number 3, budgets.
Oh gosh. So I'm in the middle of budgets right now. So I don't know that I can say in a podcast what I really think about budgets in this moment.
You don't want to say live here on the EdUp Experience how you really feel?
I might get the censor button that you were talking about. So budgets are a necessary evil. Here's what I'll say about budgets. In North Carolina, we are in a moment, I believe, where our state legislators are very much in support of and just starting to really holistically understand the importance of community colleges for our state. And so I feel like we're in such a good space here in this state right now. We had the best budget from our General Assembly for this current fiscal year than we've had at least in more than a decade. Some of that was because they had some money from the federal stimulus that they, had a little bit more flexibility on giving us some money. But I think the bigger part of it is that when we talk to them and they see the results of how we are instrumental in fueling the workforce, that it really resonates with them that they're getting a return on their investment and that, we are an asset and not a liability for the state. So I think that I feel very encouraged. However, I will say when I look nationally at the landscape of higher ed, it seems that states in general and as a nation in general, we're spending less money on education. And that's concerning to me because I grew up on a tobacco farm and I'm the only person in my family, my first person in my family, as we said earlier, to get a college education. And now I'm the president of a community college. And I wouldn't be here without education. Obviously, it is a great way for us to advance social and economic mobility. And so I'm nervous about, while I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing from our legislators and the money that they put into our budget for this year, I'm also discouraged by seeing what's happening in some places where money is being so drastically reduced.
See, I had myself on mute. That's what we do here at the EdUp Experience. Because, Bill, before you answer, I was going to ask if you have anything else you want to. Well, I'm going to give you the same one. So budgets, take it in whatever way you want.
All right, you can go back on mute.
I'm going to do that.
Stay there. I just can't believe what I just heard. You are the luckiest person I ever met. I would encourage you, and I mean this seriously, to write an op-ed or do a case study on what's happening in your state, because I live in one where it's exactly the opposite. And as you say, nationally, it's not happening. So I really think, stop that, Joe. Right. I really think that you have something that people can benefit from. And I would encourage you to share that.
Well said.
I'm done.
Right. Budgets. Bill, you got to answer. Was that your answer for her to write the op-ed? Because that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I mean, there's nothing good to say about budgets generally. And I have worked with them in privates and publics and for-profits and not-for-profits, and it's always a struggle. But to hear that there's not just a community college system, but a state that is getting this perspective is something that really needs to be shared.
Yeah, and Joe, is it okay if I add something real quick?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay.
This mic is yours.
Okay, so really quickly, what I'd say is that, to be fair, North Carolina has some work to do, right? Some of why I think I'm so encouraged is because it feels like people are finally listening, and that for so long we have not had the attention paid to community colleges, specifically in North Carolina. And that's what I'm encouraged about, is that finally they're seeing how they haven't funded us at the same level, not even close to where they are funding universities in our state. K through 12 has always been, where the focus has been on taxpayer dollars here. And now we are finally getting the message through, and it's resonating because, number one, they're seeing that to get the workforce back from COVID and to get us out of this COVID mess, I don't know what you call it, that we're in, it's going to require the community colleges and the work that we do to get people back moving forward and trained and ready to enter these jobs that is needed. So part of the reason why we're getting that attention is because we've been so far behind. However, I do agree, Bill, when I talk to my colleagues around the country and hear, number one, their enrollments are declining. Our enrollment here at Forsyth Tech, we're up 10% in enrollment this semester, which is amazing. So I think that, we're seeing some things here that are different from across the country, and perhaps a little bit of that is some of the things that our state is doing right around helping support our work now.
Well said. Well, I'm going to have to go to the judges because this was a close one. And I'm going to ask the judges if Bill Pepicello won this episode. As expected, the judges said no. So the winner here on Higher Ed Word Association is Dr. Janet Spriggs. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen, our mid-episode break. Bill, I'm going to ask you one question for you, Bill, is are you having a good time?
This is so fun.
Oh, thank you for answering.
I always have a great time with you, Joe.
This is so fun.
Thanks, Bill. Over to you.
Well, before I do have a question, but before I do that, there's something I don't want people who are listening this to miss, because I learned something today. And if you listen to my podcast, EdUp Insights,
Attention.
You'll find out that mostly I tend to teach other people and don't learn a lot myself anymore because I'm sort of old and can't remember. But one of the things that Janet talked about was the multimodality of some of her courses. And I was struck by the fact that students could attend live, or they could live stream that course live, or they could go to a recording later. I've not seen that particular model before. And so for people out there who might be trying to build online empires, Joe, one might want to take that piece of advice, because that's a really innovative model. But that's not my question. That's just lavish praise. My question is, through the pandemic and coming out the other side, you have a great array of programs, healthcare, business, technology, which is your background, I think. Do you see any trends, Janet, as we emerge here?
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for the lavish praise, by the way. That's good for a Monday, good for my ego for a Monday as we start the week. And I will say that our team who came up with that, our faculty and our provost who led that work and came up with that model, get all the credit for it. And I'm so proud of them and their continuous innovation that we talk about here at Forsyth Tech. Regards to trends, so First of all, we have 14 health sciences programs here at Forsyth Tech. My two largest employers within one of the counties that we serve are two large healthcare systems. And so you can imagine that we would have to really be invested in training a health sciences workforce here. So the trend that we've seen with that is that, as you all have heard, there are not enough nurses, there are not enough healthcare professionals right now to meet demand. And so many folks have decided this has been too much for me over the past 2 years and I'm retiring and I'm not going to work in healthcare anymore. So one of the things that we've had to do is find new ways to partner with those providers so that they're not taking all the nursing instructors, for example, back into the business. I can't train more nurses if they steal all of our faculty. And quite frankly, as kind as our General Assembly is being to community colleges right now, I still can't afford to pay what these large businesses can pay for faculty. So we are working together with our healthcare partners to find ways that we can think differently about how we engage in partnership around meeting the workforce needs and the education needs of a trained workforce. We have a retreat. My executive team and my health sciences deans and department chairs are going to be meeting with all of the health system vice presidents and folks that are making decisions on their end in a couple of weeks to come together and say, how do we do this differently? How do we look at an apprenticeship type model? How do we share faculty? They've got some nurses, as an example, or radiographers who love working in the practice in the field, but also would like maybe to not work as long and as many hours doing that. So can they do 20 hours a week, for example, in the hospital and come teach for us 20 hours? And we can work together to make these kinds of things, work. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in the other sectors that you mentioned too. There are significant gaps in IT. Our Learn and Earn apprenticeship program, LEAP, at Forsyth Tech has just won 2 awards, a big consortium member of the year award for the state and a League for Innovation award through the League for Innovation. Because
amazing.
Thank you. I think so too. And it's one of the unique things about it is that it is the college sponsored the apprenticeship program versus the old model of the employer sponsoring it and then the college partnering to provide the training. And that's made all the difference in the world, I think. And we're seeing places where we're engaging in apprenticeship models for sectors that we never would have imagined that we could do that for. We've got an MRI apprenticeship model, apprenticeship program. We just finalized the deal on and got approval for. And that's very, I think, unique. And so, yeah, there's a whole lot of that kind of how do we increase our partnerships these days because of what we've seen, I think, from the pandemic and the needs of the workforce.
Go ahead,
Yeah, before I throw it back, Joe, I want to change the subject briefly because you'd also do something that I think is unusual, and that is, if I understand what I was looking at correctly, you have an international presence from your college. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, are you talking about our programming, our Global Scholars of Distinction and the international types of Yes. So we are very much concerned with, and this is a space that some community colleges do not really get into, but we have taken on this idea that we are preparing our graduates for work in a globalized economy. And so that we should really work on creating globalized curriculum for our students. And so we've got some wonderful study away opportunities that we provide for our students. We have a Global Scholars of Distinction program that allows our students to earn distinction as a global scholar by working through some of the program aspects of that. I sit on the advisory board for UNC's Worldview program that they have. We just really are wanting to open the world up a little bit for our students. So many of our students, honestly, have never left North Carolina, and we need them to understand that there's a big, great world out there past what they see and are exposed to on a daily basis. We've got a lot of international students with us. Our SGA president was from Venezuela this year, and he just won a Goodnight Scholarship that's worth $22,000 a year to NC State University. We're so proud of him. And Han Nguyen, one of our students from Vietnam, just won the Jack Kent Cook Scholarship for this year. So yeah, we have a big presence not only with international students, but with how we are globalizing, I think, our curriculum.
That's very cool.
Very, very cool. Well, one thing that's not cool, I'll tell you, is Dr. Bill Pepicello. If I have to hear any more about Bill's podcast, EdUp Insights, here as a part of the EdUp Experience Network that you should be checking out. If I have to hear that anymore, then this episode will be truly taken over. But I will say that it is a very good podcast, and one that I listen to religiously, Bill. Well done.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll send you a t-shirt.
Please do, because I've sent you a coffee mug for the record. And Janet, we ask our guests the same two questions to end every single episode. Number one, what did we not say about Forsyth, right?
Good job. Yes.
Forsyth Technical Community College that you would like to say? Anything going on? Anything that you just want to bring up that we didn't touch on? Anything at all? The mic is yours to plug away. And then secondly to that, what do you see as the future of higher education?
Okay, great question. So we got to talk a lot about what's going on at Forsyth Tech, but one of the things that I'll tell you is that we are a purpose-driven institution. We're on a mission to do our best to eradicate poverty in our service area. I know that's bold and brash, and that's okay, because we are a bold and courageous institution that really does believe that our purpose for being here is to help people come to us to learn and to leave us better prepared and ready to for careers that provide family sustaining wages and that advance them both socially and economically. So I'm very proud of the bold work that we're doing. We have a Vision 2025 strategic plan and a vision statement that says we will be a catalyst for equitable economic mobility, empowering lives and transforming communities. And we live that every day. We are incredibly steeped in our community and ingrained in our community in partnering with our school system, K through 12 system, our university partners, the HBCU that's here in Winston-Salem, all of our business partners and our economic development partners to help be a part of how we come together to solve the community's needs, to meet their training and workforce preparedness needs, and to really make a difference at transforming our communities and turning them into what we all want them to be. And so there's a really cool program that I will call your attention to that we didn't have time to talk about called College Lift, which I think is a game changer. It's modeled after a program at the University of Southern California. And we basically take students from 6th grade through 12th grade. They apply for the program. These are first generation low income students that are at risk of being able to even be prepared for college. We spend Saturdays with them throughout the fall and spring. They come here to our campus and we give them extra education classes in science and in math and in social studies. We provide tutoring and counseling services, and then we partner with other universities that if they make it all the way through this program, they're guaranteed scholarships to either Forsyth Tech or one of our university partners when they graduate. So some cool thing that I think is unique for community colleges that I wanted to make sure that I plugged since you gave me the opportunity.
Hey, plug away.
Yes, it's a wonderful program. And then I would say the future of higher education. So I think that what we are going to have to continue to learn how to be our partners, right? Partnering with understanding that there'll never be enough public money, taxpayer dollars for us to be able to really do the work that we need to do the way that it needs to be done and the way our students deserve. So I think we have to continue to work with business partners, other educational partners in partnership to figure out how we come together to do this work. I think that we've got to realize that the students can make more demands of us that we're going to have to be more responsive to. I think private universities have always been much better at meeting students in the moment where they are, and that we're going to have to continue to be that way. And we've got to continue to find ways that students can afford the cost of education. For me, my cost is very low. It's $76 a credit hour. That's a great deal. North Carolina foots the bill, another great thing about our state. But the cost of books, the cost of technology, all these other expenses really add. And I also think from a community college centric perspective that we've got to put more money into realizing that the barriers that my students face are not because they cannot learn. Poor kids are smart. You know, kids from disadvantaged populations can learn, and we're great teachers, but they've got so many life happens things in their way that we've got to put more money into helping remove some of those non-academic barriers, daycare, transportation, all those kinds of things that are preventing our students from being successful. And I just think we've got to own that and be more prepared. Again, I'll say partnership is the word of the day to how we partner with. I'm not a social services agency and I never will be, but I can connect my students to those kinds of resources that will help them find a way to get over those barriers.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, the future of higher ed may be unpredictable, but one person that's been around so long, he's seen it all, is my guest co-host today, Dr. Bill Papicello.
Thanks, Joe. Pleasure being with you. And Janet, it's been enlightening. Thank you.
I kind of gave you a dig there, just by the way. I don't know if you heard it.
No, I ignore you all the time, Joe.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. And of course, your amazing guest today. Her name is Dr. Janet Spriggs, and she's president of Forsyth Technical Community College. Janet, how was your EdUp experience today?
It was fantastic. Thank you both so much. You guys are a lot of fun. This has been the most fun part of my day, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And by you guys, you mean me, not Bill. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd.